So my name is Donadio. I'm the director of the Cooperative Sanctuary Programs here at Audubon International. You should all be current members of the ACSP here today, whether old or new, so you could have recently joined or have been members for a few years. And the mission of this webinar is just to get you started with the certification process and explain to you a little bit about how that works. So this is going to give you an overview, explain the process that we want you to go through, as well as some helpful hints and tips to do that. On a technical side, you should all remain muted on your computer or phone throughout the presentation to ensure audio quality for all those that are listening. If you're on a phone line, be sure to mute your computer to avoid a time delay with the computer as well. We will not be taking any questions here today to save some time, because I know this is most people's lunch breaks. But my email address and phone number are going to be on the last page of this webinar in case you have any questions, as well as some of my colleagues here. We're going to be releasing this webinar on the website, so it'll be up there permanently for those that want to reference it or people that you know that might want to see this in the future. And I will also, when I release that webinar, be sending along any important questions and answers that I receive that I think all would want to see. Now, for technical issues or questions during the webinar, there is a little chat box on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. That's where we're going to want you to ask any questions. Our communications manager program specialist, Darren Blake, is going to be available on this little chat area to help you out. So please type in there if you have anything that you need from us. Okay. So how does the ACSP work? We've set it up in this Plan, Do, Check, Act format that many of you may be familiar with when thinking about processes. You're, basically going through this process, and it's a 4-step process that involves the site assessment, which is how to get started doing things, so implementing, gauging your results, and applying for individual category certification, and then continuing to do those results. And we're going to talk about a little bit about how you go through each of those areas. So the first thing we're going to go over a little bit about is resources for members. So resources that you have available to you as an ACSP member that are going to help you get started with the certification process, as well as just help you learn a little bit more about your property. So what you should all have received at some point, and if you don't have it, please reach out to us, or you could have accessed the electronic documents online, because these are all available under your member profile. A new member packet, which should include your certification handbook, the Guide to Environmental Stewardship on the Golf Course 2nd edition, your ecoregion information, which should include native plant lists, as well as some other information on an international scale if you're not U.S. based, a list of invasive species in your area that you want to be aware of, as well as an art print. So I'm going to go over a few of those and what they are and what they're going to mean to you. Your certification handbook, this is the way that it can look. Both formats are exactly the same. The one on the left there is going to be the hard copy format, whereas the one on the right is our electronic format, which can be found online. Basically exactly the same information. Please note that the hard copy has our old address and some of the locations on it, so just please be sure to reference our website if you happen to be sending paper certification and by mail, although we prefer doing it digitally to save time, money, and obviously the environment. So, your Guide to Environmental Stewardship, which on the golf course, which is basically your textbook for the process. So the former certification handbook is basically, the way that you're going to be submitting for certification to us, whereas this one is basically more of, how to do projects, things you should be thinking about. It's first and foremost an educational environmental program with a certification component, so this is that kind of educational information. Chapter 1 is going to be environmental planning. So that's kind of what we're talking about today. And you'll see as you go through it, there's some other great resources. Now, we don't expect everyone to, be going through this process or going through this entire book and reading the entire thing from front to back. We know that you're busy and this isn't, the list of your priorities, but we do suggest that you use it as a resource. So, the appendix is a really good resource. It has some bird box construction plans, sample IPM scouting reports, good plant recommendations for shorelines and pollinators. So those are just a few really cool things that you'll see in there. And the registration art plant print, which is you'll receive one of these each year with certification, or I'm sorry, with renewal. And whatever time of year your renewal may be, whether it be January or November, is when you'll get this environmental art print, your bird print. Is a drawing done by Jonathan James Audubon. This year is the crested titmouse. And this is a really good way to start your display within the ACSP program. So a way of kind of demonstrating to your members and community the work that you're doing. And there's quite a few members that have collected these throughout the years and have a whole display. So it's really exciting to see that, and that shows their commitment. So give us a call if for some reason you think you should have one of these and don't. We're always here to help. So some of the things you'll get from the ACSP besides the new member packet, which I just kind of went over a little bit. Technical support from our staff. Staff are available anytime by phone and email, so just give us a call or shoot us an email about a question, no matter how small or big. Our member-only website, which has some resources, and we'll show you a little bit about that later. Our Audubon Steward Network, which is a list of people that we have identified as being really familiar with the ACSP process throughout the country. Now, they may be superintendents, or they could be local environmental groups or other people in areas, but we have a map of this under news and resources on the website, so you can see who's in your area and who you can reach out to. Staff site visits are available, so we're always available to come to your property and do a site visit and give you some on-site recommendations. They're not required as part of the program, nor are they involved in the membership cost. So they would be an additional membership fee plus the cost of travel, but we're always willing to do that if that's something that you'd like us to do. Promotional opportunities that you can get through the program. We offer press releases when a course is certified or recertified. Your case studies, which we'll require submission of, will be a good way to highlight what you're doing. Articles, so we do get contacted a lot by all types of golf and environmental organizations about stories that courses are doing. So we're always sharing those awesome opportunities and kind of stories to them. And similarly, media highlights about what's going on with courses in our program. The ACSP member-only area, as I mentioned on the last page, is really going to be a good resource for you. You can only access this by logging on to the website under your login and username. You each should have one. It's attached to the email that's attached to your membership. And once you log in there, there's a few good resources. This is just the front page, so you'll see certification documents, a link to educational resources, and then the instructions for uploading your files through a Dropbox format, which we have available online. And it's a good way to save postage, paper, money, and basically, start submitting things electronically. And there's a few other things on here as well. As you notice, the introductory webinar that we had in the past, which is a similar webinar to the one today. It's just a little bit of an older one, so we'll be updating this with webinars. And then at the bottom, upcoming events, you'll see today's presentation on there as well. In the educational resources section, there's quite a few good resources in here. A few things to note would be the fact sheet, so that you can share that with your members. You can print out as many copies as you want. A few reports, The steward network map, as I mentioned, of all the stewards throughout the country and the world. The list of natural resources, so finding your region within the U.S. or internationally, some resources in there. Your watershed information, how to search for that. So I suggest you kind of go in there and kind of look around and see what's going to help you out. So this is our Facebook page. Facebook is a great way of promoting our certified members, as well as kind of giving some resources to everyone. And it's a good way for us to communicate with the outside world about the efforts that the golf courses that we have in our program are doing. We share here, we link to awesome articles, we announce new members, we like to share awesome stories. So if you want to like this page, it helps to keep you updated on what's going on if you have a Facebook account. We also have a Twitter and Instagram account for individual members that have those social media accounts. A resource within the Facebook page, for example, is our environmental displays and signs photo album. So if you're looking to do some environmental displays and signs, which we will require as part of outreach and education, you can kind of take a look through here and see, you know, what different members have done throughout the country and the world to, you know, do displays. And some of them are really fancy and elaborate, and others are simple and budget. But either way, it's getting the message across. So get inspired. So as we go into the next stage, we're gonna talk about what we said in the beginning, which is plan, do, check, act. So planning is, you know, calling us, emailing us, reaching out to your steward network, doing similar, but you know, obviously starting to implement your environmental plan. So starting to document things. Checking would be submitting your certification handbook and your request, your individual request, to see, you know, if you're able to be certified based on what you're currently doing. And then acting is just continually striving for continuous improvement in the future through recertification. So the first part, the plan section, within starting your site assessment environmental plan, which is probably where most of you are, and really the first thing that you want to think about when you're starting this process. The first thing you want to do is have that certification handbook handy in front of you. Like I said, you can download this on the certification documents through the website. You may have the hard copy, which is that blue colored writing on the front. Either way works. They're both the same forms, but this kind of gives you the resources. So once you have that, that first section is your site assessment environmental plan, and this is kind of an example of what it looks like. The left side, this is your site assessment. We're looking to see what your property is like, so we want you to, you know, do some check boxes, fill in some forms, tell us about your turf, how many acres. This just helps us to get a clear overview of what your property looks like for the rest of the certification process. Now we know you're busy, so this was set up as a way to make it quick and easy for you. So it's all kind of fill in the blanks and check boxes. If you're taking more than 2 hours with this, you're probably taking a bit too long, and give us a call. It shouldn't take that long. You should kind of know about your property, and it should be a pretty relatively quick process. The site assessment resource advisory group and outreach. So this is another portion of the site assessment. You know, that you'd be kind of looking at, and there's multiple pages, so these are just some examples. This is kind of telling us about what you're doing currently with outreach and education, as well as, more importantly, starting your resource advisory group, which is a key to the program, the ACSP program here. These are people that are not just staff, but could be your GM, your members, people from local surrounding groups, birding groups, you know, all people that are in your community to help you with your environmental stewardship efforts. So this is where you want to start thinking about it, putting some names down and getting some contacts. And then when you apply for outreach and education with certification later on, we're going to require a firm group of resource advisory group members. So this is just your way of kind of planning that early on. Now, the second part of this is your environmental plan. So this is kind of what it looks like, the wildlife habitat portion as well as the water conservation portion. There's just some questions in here that we're asking about, practices that you currently are doing or are not doing on your facility. And it's not a test. This is a plan. So we just want to see if you're doing it, if you're partially doing it, not doing it, and then what are your planned efforts. And it's okay to say no. We'll help you with a report, and this is basically your jumping point for figuring out what you need to do to get certified. Now, as I mentioned, yes, partial, no, and planned are some of the things that you'll be filling in with these check boxes. So what does that mean? Yes is that the management practice is ongoing, complete or ongoing, and it can be verified. Partial is it's been started but needs further attention. And then no is obviously you haven't really started this at all yet. So if it's planned or no, we need to see a deadline, so a clear picture of when you're going to start that. It doesn't need to be specific to the date. It doesn't need to say by August 31st, 2016, but generally the fall of 2016. We just want to see that you're setting deadlines for these projects. Now, if you believe that the management practice is not applicable to your course, just please let us know why. Most of these will be applicable to all courses, but we understand that there's some exceptions that may fall in there. The statement of support and environmental policy is at the end of your site assessment environmental plan. This is basically just your way and our way of kind of seeing that you have a team effort going on at your club or course. Unfortunately, this can't just be a one-person thing. The environmental management requires all parties to be involved on the property, from the GM to the superintendent to the seasonal staff or whoever. So this is where you're going to sign off, and then you'll have either board or GM sign off as well, so that they understand kind of what's going to be going on with the ACSP program. And then your environmental policy, this is a template that we have on the website under your members only area that you can use to sign, but this is basically for your display as well as for us to see that you have a policy in place. Some courses have environmental policies already that they put together, and you can submit that. That's A-okay, but we just want to see that this is something that you're thinking about. Now, the next part was you'd submit that to us, your site assessment environmental plan, and we would review it. Typically, the review process, depending on the time of year, takes about 2 months. You can submit any time of year, so whatever works best for you. Although the spring season is when we have recertifications due, so things can tend to take about a month more during that season just to get us for us to get information back to you. So we highly suggest that if you can, submit August through December for a quicker turnaround. Now, this is what you would get from us after we process. As you can see on the left, that's a report that we would kind of break down for you of your environmental practices, what you're doing, what we recommend based on what you've told us, as well as a press release about your joining the program that you can send out to your community and press in your area to tell people that you've been recognized for environmental planning and that you're starting this process. This report is something you'll become very familiar with throughout the certification process. You'll get one of these every time you send a submission to us, and it basically breaks down what you have done, what you need to do, and kind of what we're looking for if we have more questions. So after the environmental planning, where to next? The next part is do. So next part is looking at your environmental plan and seeing what am I missing and how do I start accomplishing these tasks. And a few tools for helping you to do this. Obviously, you want to start compiling a list of backup documentation. So a few things that you'll need with the certification that will require you'll want to start doing is a wildlife inventory. So looking at the species on your property, identifying endangered species. There's some great resources and lists of endangered species by state or by country on the members only area. Photographs. Photographs are important for us because we don't require site visits with certification, so that's our way of seeing what's going on, and we do require them. Clearly labeled, you know, obviously showing what's good, what's going on. We want to see, you know, if we can share them too, which is excellent. We're always going to share them if they're good quality pictures. So, you know, send in your photographs at any time, even when you're not doing certification. Your property map is something you'll require for certification as well, but it's also a way for you to kind of start planning and figuring out if you want to naturalize this area and kind of see what's going on. So a few good resources. Scribble Maps is an electronic version of, you know, basically a Google map, and I'll show you on the next page how that works, that you can draw on. DAF Logic allows you to find your heights of your property. And, you know, some members will print out a map of their property and kind of draw on it, which is also an option. Although it's, you know, more difficult to update that way, it's definitely a way to do it. You also want to start keeping strong IPM records, scouting reports, what your thresholds are, kind of how much you're applying, and, you know, how you're trying to reduce that, because that tells a story. And then water quality test records. So starting a water quality management program, which we can help you figure out and give you guidelines on where to go with that. So as I mentioned, Scribble Maps is a resource. It's free. You basically just, like any kind of Google Maps, kind of zoom into your property. This is a local golf course that we have on here, Schenectady Municipal, outside of the Albany area. And basically, you know, it gives you the tools along the top to start kind of drawing and telling us, you know, this is a naturalized area here. You know, this is, you know, color in an area. So it's just a way for you to kind of demonstrate what's going on at your property and what it looks like. Now, this page is a sample of one that was submitted and approved to us through one of the certifications, just to give you a clear idea of what we're looking for. And it kind of has a really good key that explains to us what's going on, and you know, and we can look back at this with the recertifications and see how improvements are made, as well as you can look back at this and see how improvements are made. As I mentioned, DAF Logic has an excellent way to find altitude. You just similarly find your property on the Google Maps, and you would just click on a spot, and it would tell you exactly what the altitude of that exact location is, which is a really awesome tool. In your case study, which I mentioned before, we require an environmental case study to be submitted with certification and with recertification to ensure that, you know, you're kind of doing some really to hear your stories about what's going on in your property and making sure that you're kind of keeping track of some of these projects. So you're basically going to choose one project that you've done and tell us about it in detail. It doesn't need to be difficult. You want to think about the data that you can collect and measure. So the more data, the better. Before and after photos, financials of the project, who did you use, who did you involve in the project, resources that were used. You can give us a call for idea. Now we do receive a lot of case studies on bird boxes and bird habitats, which is really awesome, and you know, we know that members do some really good things. Although we do receive a lot, and we typically will not share bird box case studies unless they're unique or exceptional. So the more unique or exceptional your case study is, interesting data, the more likely it is we're going to share on our website and to the outside world in publications. So just keep that in mind. Things that we're looking for always are, you know, studies on IPM, water conservation. These are some really hot topics that people really want to know a lot about right now. So think about things like that when thinking about your case study. So the next section, check. After you've completed all of the areas of kind of starting to pull together data, is to actually submit for certification within the 5 categories. Now, the 5 categories of the ACSP are wildlife habitat management, water conservation, water quality management, chemical use reduction safety, and outreach and education. You can submit multiple together. You can submit them individually. It really depends on, kind of how you're doing and the amount of time that you have, as well as, where you are in your progress. Wildlife habitat management. This is the example of the certification request for that. It's a couple pages more than this, but this is the front cover. And basically, you'd submit that to us, and similarly, we would process it and give you a report, either saying that you've been certified in this area or that we need some more information. And once you've received certification in all 5 categories, you would be certified as an Audubon Cooperative Sanctuary, and we would give you all of the information and recognition around that. And finally, it doesn't end there. The last part is ACT. So this is where you are continuing to strive for improvement in the program. The way that we check that is through recertification, which happens every 3 years. And it alternates between 2 types of recertification. So we are looking for backup documentation, which you see here, which is a very shortened form of the certification process, where we're kind of looking at your water quality test and pesticide records, and we want some updated photos and things, but like I said, certainly not as in depth as the certification. And then alternately, the next 3rd year would be a site visit. So basically, that would be a third party from your community, typically a volunteer that would come to your property and, kind of walk through and fill out a form that we provide, and tell us what they see and ask you questions. And those are our 2 ways. They alternate every 3 years of kind of checking up on your progress, and for you to kind of continuously set goals and achieve them. Another big part of this is telling your story. After you're certified and throughout the certification process, you always want to be thinking about that key component of outreach and education. So, thinking about not just doing the environmental projects, but telling your story through displays, through local community organizations, through press, demonstrating it on your website. We have tons of logos, and obviously that display and signage area can help you get some inspiration in that area. So finally, we are here to help, as I mentioned before. This is our team here with the ACSP program. I'm on the left there, Darren Blake, who you might have been speaking with through our text area here today, and then Delphine Sen, who's our manager of member services. You can call us all at any time, and we can help you get documents. If you have questions with projects or things that you want to get started with, or maybe want to know about another member that might have done this project, we have a database of people that we can kind of look up and see, where you can go from there. So thank you for joining us today for our webinar on starting the ACSP program. Like I said, questions, please email us. You can email me directly, and I will compile your questions and send it out to the group, along with the webinar link and attachments so that you can see that.